Why don't we go ahead and introduce our panelists and begin the presentation from them, and then should the internet start working again, then we'll review the end of the video. So today we have 3 guests from City College, 2 from faculty and 1 from the student body. I'm really pleased to welcome them today and appreciate their making the effort to come. So we have Jaime Barrazas from the ESL department at CCSF. He's now retired, and we welcome him. He'll speak first. He'll be followed by Karen Saganor, a librarian and faculty senator from CCSF, and folks here at PFT and Peralta know Karen because she wrote the kind of definitive early statement on the struggle between CCSF and ACCJC that we ran on our website in January of last year. And we also have Otto Pippinger, a student who's studying labor studies, I believe, in history, and who hopes to be a community organizer. And I don't think community organizers ever end up doing anything of interest, but that's another issue. So thanks so much for coming today, you 3. And why don't I turn it over to Jaime, who will give us an introduction to the situation at City.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us to come and talk to you today. My name is Jaime. I taught ESL at City College for 33 years, 8 of them as an adjunct, and then I became tenured after that. City College is an institution that deals with a great range of students, a great variety, and really an incredible mix of working class kids, immigrant kids, ex-military coming back from the war fields and trying to readjust to civilian life, and even people who are coming back after having been incarcerated. Some of them, including one of our valedictorians recently, have overcome some very, very strong struggles in order to complete their education at City College. We have been a true community college with a broad mission to try to serve the needs of our community. But a few years back, you may remember there was a budget crisis across the state of California in the wake of the mortgage crisis. The whole state was in a recession. City College, the Board of Trustees, classified staff, and faculty were united in trying to keep the cuts as far away from the classroom as possible. We took pay cuts. Money was very tight, but we managed to stay in the black. And then in 2012, we had an accreditation visit. We knew that the college had problems, financial problems and administrative problems because of those financial problems, so we expected that we might get a warning, or maybe even probation. But instead, we went from complete full accreditation to show cause, as in show cause why accreditation should not be terminated. We were being told that our college was failing, and they wanted to know why we should be allowed to continue. I was particularly surprised by this because the Board of Governors scorecard for City College showed that we were considerably above the state average in student persistence, in completion, in transfers to 4-year institutions. That doesn't sound like the picture of a failing college to me. But apparently they were not interested in that. They were interested in governance and finance, or at least that's what they said. There was no criticism at all about the quality of education. I think I want to tell you a little story. A few semesters before I retired, it was a Sunday morning and I was crossing a street in San Francisco. The street was closed because there was some kind of street fair going on, and there were police officers redirecting traffic away from that area. And as I was crossing the street, I heard somebody call my name. And I turned around, and there was a woman, police officer, standing there. And she said, "You don't remember me, do you?" This was in 2012, I think. And I said, "You do look familiar, but I'm sorry I don't remember your name. Were you a student of mine?" She said, "Yes, You taught me job skill preparation. You helped me write my first resume. And you practiced interview questions with me. And because of you, I got my first full-time job in the United States. I don't know how many of you have had experiences like this, running into ex-students who tell you how you may have affected their lives in a positive way. And it happens to me quite often, but this was particularly striking because this woman had not seen me in over 20 years, and yet she remembered my name. I can't tell you how that feels. And I can't tell you how good it felt to know that I was working for the people of San Francisco, especially for the people who needed it the most and could afford it the least, because that's what community colleges are for. We don't take students who have endless amounts of money. We don't take students who are academically brilliant in high school. We take the people who need a second chance. And often we change their lives for the better, lives that otherwise might have been a lot less interesting and a lot less fun. Now, in 2012, what happened was we got this thing about show cause. The truth is that we know, because of court filings, that the visiting team initially discussed issuing a warning, which is the lowest form of sanction. But one team member persuaded others to recommend that we be placed on probation, and that's what the team eventually did. However, the commission, in its rather questionable wisdom, decided that we needed to be put on show cause. And this hasn't only happened at City College, by the way. There was a report from the R&D committee of the State Board of Governors in 2011 that suggested that this happened rather frequently, that they would change the visiting team's recommendations, usually making the sanction more severe than the team had recommended. So I think it was not a complete surprise. I mean, it was. It came as a total shock. But knowing what we knew, we thought something was happening. The purpose of accreditation is to provide assurance to the public that an institution is offering a quality education. And that's what ACCJC's website says, although in a recent court filing, ACCJC said that the quality of education at City College is irrelevant to meeting its accreditation standards. Accrediting agencies can and should impose sanctions when significant problems are identified but ignored. And we at City College, AFT Local 2121 and the CFT, we all agree with this. We knew that we were in trouble. And what the faculty did, among other things, was to start a ballot proposition to raise money from a parcel tax in San Francisco. San Francisco is extremely familiar with City College. I mean, 100,000 students in a college in a city with a population of 700,000 has quite a large market share. And everybody has either been to City College or knows somebody who goes to City College. And when that parcel tax passed, it passed by a 73% margin. Also, the state at that time passed Prop 30, which helped fund community colleges across the state. So we were starting to pull out of our financial crisis. And we knew that we were starting to get back on our feet. Faculty immediately went into action trying to meet the recommendations that the ACCJC had made. Faculty put in very long hours. The college spent a great deal of money on consultants and lawyers and financial experts, money that should have been spent on classroom activities and teaching. And everybody worked in overdrive. Not just the administration, but teachers working on rewriting SLOs and all kinds of things that the ACCJC had told us we needed to do. But despite all this work that we did in just 9 months, and still with no criticism of the quality of education, in July 2013, the ACCJC decided to announce that they were going to revoke our accreditation at the end of that academic year. So we were going to have to close our doors. At the end of that first year, our enrollment had gone from 100,000 to about 85,000. And at this point is hovering somewhere around 60,000, I think. Largely, this is because classes have been cut and because the atmosphere at the college and the publicity around the accreditation crisis gave people the misimpression that the college was really going to close. So the state chancellors, the state board of governors appointed a special trustee who worked with the board for the first year. And after 2013, the boards was taken out of the picture. Our elected representatives were neutralized, and a special trustee with extraordinary powers was put in place, which essentially meant that there was one person running the college. A lot of new administrators came in, and they had a different agenda from the administrators that had been there before. A lot of them were former administrators who had been brought out of retirement. And we learned that in addition to receiving a salary, they were also receiving their full pensions while they were working at City College. Now, if I went back to work and made more than $40,000 a year, they'd start taking back part of my pension, but apparently that doesn't apply to them. The visiting team reported that in 9 months, when they came back, that we had met most of the standards and that we just needed to continue the work to complete an annual cycle. But Barbarbino's letter increased the number of deficiencies by 50% without explanation, and announced that the commission had voted to terminate CCSF's accreditation because we had not been able to complete an annual cycle in 9 months. Now, I don't know how many people can live a year in 9 months. Have you ever done that? Sometimes I feel like time is slower than it really is, but it rarely goes that fast. That's the point at which a lot of people began to wake up. And they started to see that ACCJC was not playing on a level playing field, that there was some dishonesty and just a little bit of the rogue organization about them. They were engaged in trying to downsize City College, trying to defeat the mission that we had been carrying forward since 1937. And they had their political agendas, we thought. Disempowering faculty voices, disempowering faculty unions. So, you didn't see the whole video. When you see more of it, you will understand what happened then. Our local union and state organization filed an extensive complaint with the Department of Education in Washington. The Department of Education responded with a letter directing ACCJC to correct its own deficiencies. Our union filed a lawsuit, which is still well, it's been settled, but it was settled through the city of San Francisco and not with the union. In January, the San Francisco Superior Court granted an injunction preventing ACCJC from withdrawing accreditation until judgment was issued in the trial. And last February, the Department of Education officially notified ACCJC that it is out of compliance with federal regulations and that it has 1 year to come into compliance. Essentially, they are on show cause. In April, the Organization of CEOs of California Community Colleges wrote to the ACCJC protesting the unfairness of ACCJC's actions to terminate our accreditation. And on the request of the California legislature, the state auditor, a nonpartisan professional auditor, conducted an audit of their practices and their impact on community colleges, how much additional costs they were imposing, how much additional work they were creating for faculty and administrators. And it reported numerous problems and recommended that the state chancellor and the board of governors reconsider the Title V state regulations that gave ACC a monopoly in accrediting two-year schools. The board of governors is currently considering whether to amend the language. Well, they have, actually, and have done that. They have taken the ACCJC out of Title V, which is the first step in trying to get another accreditation. Unfortunately, the result of the trial, while they were in favor of City College, the judge was hesitant to go too far. He did not try to nullify the original accreditation, he said that the problem was that they had not given us opportunity to answer the additional deficiencies that had been noted in 2013 and urged the ACCJC to do that. But by that time, we were already in a special status which was created only for us called restoration status. And at this point, I think I want to turn.
I'm a librarian, the chair of my department. I was academic senate president for some years, including I was in that position when City College was placed on show cause. My first reaction to that was, well, that's too harsh, but we can fix it just by doing what's required and demonstrating that we meet the standards. I was very uncomfortable with the union's response. Academic senate colleagues from other colleges around the state warned me that questioning the decision would bring even harsher treatment from ACCJC. I and faculty colleagues immediately began working to address the deficiencies that had been identified. We started working 10, 12, 14-hour days, as happens at pretty much all colleges that get put on show cause or has other kinds of sanctions. However, as you heard, when the commission handed us a termination decision, largely because we had not completed a year's worth of work in 9 months, I was very disillusioned about the commission and have become more so through subsequent events. There's many things I could tell you about. I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of these. The ACCJC appeal process, this was conducted in the summer of 2014 following their policy. This appeal was to a panel that was supposed to be independent. That panel found no problems with ACCJC. They said, oh no, ACCJC did the right thing. However, but here are facts about that panel that you may not already know. The members of that panel were appointed by the ACCJC leadership, and 3 of the 5 were former members of the commission, not exactly independent. City College was told it could challenge the inclusion of individuals on the panel, but when our administration asked for 2 of those panelists to be removed, the request was just denied, and one of those 2 was made chair of the panel. That panel chair, Frank McGinnis, has multiple conflicts of interest. He works as a consultant for ACCJC. He gets additional income because Barbara Bino recommends that schools that are having troubles hire him as a consultant for those districts. In the papers that he files for his own district, he lists that he has a conflict of interest with ACCJC. But he was appointed to the panel as if he was an independent judge. And he was not even a fresh set of eyes in terms of City College. Barbara Bino had brought him to City College immediately after we were put on show cause, and he lectured our Board of Trustees on how they should behave. That was supposedly the independent appeal panel taking a fresh look at our case. And of course they decided, oh no, ACCJC did exactly the right thing. If ACCJC really knew they had done the right thing, why did they have to stack the appeal panel to come and look at it? Last fall and last winter, the city's attorney's case came to trial. You've probably read about that one in the newspaper. It was the testimony that was delivered in front of overflowed crowds in the largest courtroom available was very revealing. President Barbara Bino and her staff contradicted themselves on the witness stand. Commissioners, responding to questions from their own attorney, testified that a major reason for why they voted to terminate City College in 2013 had been their displeasure that City College trustees had not come in person to the commission meeting to petition for more time. And they admitted under cross-examination that trustees were not, in fact, actually invited to come to those meetings, and that their attendance at commission meetings is not listed among the accreditation standards, and the accreditation standards is what they're supposed to be making their decision on whether they terminate a college or not. But they really cared that a trustee had not come. The final verdict to that trial, as you already heard, it came out actually exactly a month ago on February 17th. Judge Carnow ruled in favor of the people and against the commission. He said that ACCJC broke 4 laws in its decision to discredit City College in 2013. And as you've heard, the remedy he ordered is weaker than what we had hoped. He ordered ACCJC to allow the college, which was not a party to the suit, to learn in writing what deficiencies it had failed to meet and have the opportunity to respond. Those 10 additional deficiencies that had been added in at the last moment in 2013. Our administration is pursuing this process, But since the judge is deferring to their expertise in accreditation matters, the outcome has been predicted. ACCJC will once again decide that they did everything right, and we will continue with the process they invented us called restoration. This restoration process gives us until fall of 2016 to achieve full compliance. What does full compliance mean? Isn't that what every college is supposed to do? Well, it's different. It means that if ACCJC isn't satisfied that City College completely meets every single one of the 140 parts of the standards, then they will terminate accreditation with no appeal. If City College is in substantial compliance, which is the norm for most colleges, if City College is in substantial compliance with all the standards and satisfies ACCJC perfectly for more than 100 standards, but they decide that we've fallen a little short for even one standard, they can shut us down. This is far more than they demand for a college to be accredited in the first place, and more than they've asked for any other college, including other colleges that were on show cause, and then reaffirmed, and at the same time said, here are some recommendations because you don't completely meet every standard. But for us, if we don't completely meet to their satisfaction every single one of the standard, that will be the end. And this is for the new 2014 standards that no one has been judged on yet, but we'll have to meet them 100% on the first try. Remember that I mentioned that when we were put on show cause, many of us started working 10-hour days, 12-hour days, 14-hour days. We're still doing that. We've been doing that all along, and we're expecting to continue to work at that pace for the next 2 years. We have made many changes at City College to be in line with every standard, and we will continue to do that work. The pace of work that we are doing and the amount of stress that we are under is something that we really cannot support. One of my colleagues in my department had a medical emergency this weekend for the kind of condition that is greatly affected by stress. And he's somebody who has been working, 10-hour days, 12-hour days. It's not good for us, it's not good for the students to try and be running a marathon for, year after year. But that is what we will continue to do, since that is what we need to do. Some of you may have read the recent memo from the president of ACCJC that was sent to the college CEOs and ALOs. They posted it on their website, and it was consulted by many reporters and reflected in the news. One of the many ways in which President Bino misstates the ruling that Judge Karnow made is by flipping negative statements into positive statements. For example, Judge Karnow ruled that the people had failed to prove that when Bino requested changes to the visiting team report, such as she told them to take out, she told actually the chair of the visiting team to take out a sentence that said that City College had made tremendous progress, and the chair of the visiting team took that out without consulting the rest of the team. Judge Karnow said that although Bino had made these changes, that the city attorney had failed to prove that that affected the vote of the commission. But Bino's memo says that Judge Karnow found that, quote, the staff edits of the team report by Barbara Bino did not create inappropriate influence on the peer evaluation process. Is this accurately reporting a statement to turn a negative statement about not finding proof into a positive statement? Here's a familiar example of that kind of change, right? There's the statement, scientists have not found proof that climate change is caused by human activity, right? Is that the same thing as saying, scientists have found that climate change is not caused by human activity, right? I think all of you see that those two statements are not logically the same. But that's the kind of thing that the president of ACCJC puts out in a letter saying, well, here's what the judge decided. The whole letter is like that. Apparently, our accrediting agency does not see the difference between those kinds of statements and thinks you can just flip a negative into a positive and it means the same or close enough. Who cares? One of the significant issues that was explored and resolved during the trial but has gone missing in Dr. Bino's memo is the meaning of the term deficiency and how colleges are notified about deficiencies that merit sanction or termination. ACCJC's muddying of what is a deficiency and what isn't, and what's a recommendation and what's a deficiency, has been fertile ground for stress and trauma at many colleges throughout California and has led to many sanctions and threats of sanction, where a college thought it was in compliance and then was told, oh, you know, that little thing on page 3 where we said that's a recommendation, well, that was actually a deficiency and you haven't done enough and now you're in really big trouble. I'm going to quote just a little bit from Judge Karnow's decision because his writing is so clear. He says, the meaning of the term deficiency is critical. ACCJC asserts that the word deficiency refers to conduct that results into non-compliance, but not non-compliance itself. Therefore, they contend, the Commission may conclude that an institution failed to meet an accreditation standard at a pertinent time, even if the failure to meet that standard was not previously raised, right? He goes on to say, I reject their definition of deficiencies because it is not reasonable. I'm paraphrasing here. He says, quote, under that view, if the facts on which the Commission's decision is based are somewhere in the record, the reviewed institution has an opportunity to respond to these facts. But an institution confronted with a lengthy report with a host of factual determinations accompanied by a determination based on the facts in the same report that the institution is in compliance with an accreditation requirement cannot possibly be thusly afforded notice that it is charged with failing to comply with that same accreditation requirement on the same facts. And that was exactly part of how they decided that although they had told us, yes, you are in compliance, they could then come back and say, no, you're not in compliance. So Bino's memo touches on this issue without any detail as if it were a small technicality. Her memo fails to acknowledge that our accrediting agency has any problem that it needs to address. So here we all are, you as well as myself, with an accrediting agency that uses a muddy definition of deficiency and thinks that not finding proof of that a particular action has been taken is exactly the same thing as finding proof that the action has not been taken. And our accrediting agency retaliates. Up and down the state of California, faculty and many administrators have warned us that criticizing ACCJC, providing facts that are unpleasant but quite real, will result in worse treatment for our college. If this warning resonates with you, please think about this. Isn't there something deeply wrong with an accrediting agency that retaliates? Don't our colleges deserve an accrediting agency that is truthful, uses sound reasoning, and acts fairly? When fundamental problems are uncovered, shouldn't our accrediting agency acknowledge them and work to correct them just as our colleges should do? That is what our students deserve, a fair accreditation process that is focused on the improvement of educational quality. We don't have that yet, but we can get there from where we are now if we work at it. The State Board of Governors has changed Title V regulations and took out the language that gave ACCJC a monopoly over accreditation in California. A lot of work still needs to be done and a lot of persuasion needs to be exercised with the Board of Governors and the State Chancellor to get to the point where there actually are alternatives to ACCJC. But a big step has been taken in that direction at the behest of the report from the state auditor that really lambasted the agency. There are once again a number of bills in the state legislature that will decrease the power of ACCJC if they pass with our support. ACCJC has only temporary recognition by the U.S. Department of Education, as you heard. They're basically on their own show cause. They have not yet completed the obligation to demonstrate compliance with federal regulation. In particular, ACCJC needs to demonstrate to the federal government that it and its decisions are widely respected. Public opinion and the framing of issues has shifted considerably in the last couple of years. And the reason City College is still open now, the reason that they made up restoration status instead of just closing City College, is that in addition to the accreditation work that I and my colleagues have worked on so hard, is that we also speak up for fairness, that we've spoken up loudly, effectively, and often. We all need to meet accreditation standards, and we all deserve to be judged fairly. Please help us make fair accreditation a reality. You can do that by passing resolutions and publicizing them, and I believe there's some models available for you to look at. Please take these resolutions to your academic senate, take these resolutions to your student senate, ask your board of trustees to look at this situation and to consider a resolution. The classified senate also, they can be helpful in bringing a resolution that we all deserve fair accreditation. Please encourage the Board of Governors, the legislature, and the Department of Education to rein in the increasingly tyrannical and arbitrary ACCJC. Thank you very much.
I can't go into as much detail as them because I'm not a faculty member or a teacher, but I am a student. My name's Otto Pippinger, and I'm going to tell you what City College means to me, who I am, and what it's been like to live through this process as a student. So like I said, my name is Otto Pippinger. I'm a full-time history student with a minor in labor studies. I work for the school paper. I'm in my 4th semester, pursuing an associate's degree, and I'm hoping to transfer very soon to a state school for a bachelor's. Now, I live in San Francisco with my parents and 3 younger brothers near my age. Now, I attend the City College of San Francisco because it is available to me. My family and I can't afford the tuition or any of the other costs for college for 3 children at the same time. Now, I'm also a high school dropout. I suffer very badly from obsessive compulsive disorder, and when I dropped out of high school, I was badly addicted to heroin. And so I was not at the top of anyone's admissions list when I was 18. Now, during that time, for really no reason at all, other than that it was there, I started taking classes at City College. It could have been anything. It could have been pottery or an acting class. But the fact of the matter is that at City College, I found wonderful people. I found structure. I found belonging. And so now, just 3 years later, I have straight A's. I've got good odds. Thank you. I'm hoping to get into UC Berkeley next year. I've got good odds at it. I own my own freelance photography business. I pay taxes. I have a business card. But it is only because, and I repeat, only because City College of San Francisco was there for me when I was none of these things, that I am the person I am today, a person considered useful to society, somebody people want to know. Now, let me go ahead a bit here. Now, I attend City College because it's there. It's what I can afford. It's what I can walk to. It's what is present. And so when I say it's what's available to me, I'm not saying that with resignation or with cynicism, but with honest-to-God awe, because it is the only place that is for me and so many tens of thousands of others. It is all but unique in being that. Exclusivity and lifelong debts have become the national truism surrounding college. The deal is, you pay us $50,000 and then you can get a job. Well, City College does that for almost nothing. For $3,000 or $4,000 over 4 or 5 or 6 years, it belies all the nasty cynicism that people think is modern life. Now, without any concession whatsoever in the scope or excellence of our education, City College transcends the most profound barriers in our society every single day. I sit in class with everyone. There are 57 countries represented at my school, people of every age you can name. There is no group represented, right? Rather than the wealthy, the demographics of my school are the demographics of my city, and I think that's a wonderful thing. Now, while there are plenty at my school with time, money, and support who could go to any school that they want to, and while there are many more with dedication and brilliance both, there are ever so many more who cannot. My school has people without houses, people working 12-hour days, dropouts, addicts, people on probation, the mentally ill, and we're all going to be fine. We're all going to get back into society without any debt, without any punishment, because City College is what it is. Every facet of City College matters, every proposed cut a real and immediate loss. People do not understand the impact that every single one of these cuts has on us. How little we have to risk, how little we can change, the cost of taking a bus, the work hours that we can't change. The ACCJC has taken issue with the breadth of CCSF's mandate. That is the fact. They've said that the school offers too broad an education, that too much money and energy is spent accommodating immigrant students, adult learners, people on probation. They take issue with classes that don't lead directly to jobs or degrees. And that is a venal and short-sighted way to look at something that affects nearly 100,000 people. Because every single year, my school provides $300 million worth of civic jobs to this city. Take the Ethnic Studies Department, for instance. Created at SF State in 1968 after the longest student strike in history and adopted shortly after by our school. Now they want to get rid of it. Because regardless of what 40,000 students say, or 10,000 teachers, or hundreds of thousands of citizens who vote for us and vote for our parcel taxes and vote to support us time and time again, there are a group of 100 or 200 or 300 ideologues who think that the only college worth having is one that applies to people who can pay, to people who are going to be taking a very limited range of jobs. And as a student, we're being told that the circumstances of our birth and our lives prevent us from being what we want to be. We're being told that certain futures are simply outside of our purview and to get used to it. I know a man who works as a mechanic who hopes to open his own garage. If he's unable to pursue non-credit adult education courses, he's going to lose his dream. The city's going to lose the money. My friend will lose his life's ambition. I know a woman living on a fixed income who is 1 semester away from finishing a filmmaking degree, her only ambition, and a pay cut of just $80 a year forced her to choose between her rent and finishing her degree. I know an immigrant who gets to stay here as long as he's taking classes. He gets to stay with his wife as long as he gets to take classes. And I wish I could show all of you here how much more they love each other than anyone else I ever know, because I think that matters, and I think that's a good reason to keep my school open. Thank you. Just to finish, I really have never encountered, seen, or been a part of anything that matters more to me or that I think is more worthy of preservation. I hope you'll please take the time to sign this resolution. It's a stroke of a pen to you. It means everything to us. And I hope you'll take the time to evaluate us as well. Thank you so much for your time. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it.
Thanks, Otto. Thanks so much, and thanks to Jaime and Karen, too. So we'll open it up for questions in a moment. Let me reiterate the subtle ask that was made in all of our presenters' presentations. Please take a moment to look at the resolution, a sample resolution that we're circulating up there, if you haven't got it already, and bring that to your local academic senate. bring it to the classified Senate, bring it to the board, and let's see if we can't push that through. Also, please make sure that you have signed in and that you've given us your email address, because the sample resolution is lacking the back page. So we have tricked you into making sure that you leave your email address so we can send you the complete resolution via email. I apologize for our technical difficulties here. I realize that some folks didn't get the full background before we launched into the Q&A. I'll make a couple of quick points, and then I'll turn it over to folks in the audience to talk to Karen and Jaime and Otto. One, of course, we're just coming off visits from our own visiting teams from last week, so I think all of the issues surrounding accreditation remain fresh and remain points of anxiety for some of us. Speaking of anxiety, and speaking more loudly and clearly of anxiety, I know that there's been a long-standing concern about having a forum of exactly this sort at Peralta for fear of the sort of retaliation that came out in our presentations today. So I just wanted to sort of pat ourselves on the back for having this presentation and confronting some of the issues that have been raised today. I think these concerns are long-standing, as I've said, and folks have taken the attitude here and elsewhere, as Karen said so eloquently, that it's safer to sort of keep your head down, right, and not pose these questions. So again, it pleases me that we're able to have this open forum and talk about a potentially difficult subject openly and energetically. So let me see if there are questions from the gathered masses here today, and our panelists will respond.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to us. I'm just wondering if you know why the action on the state level is not enough to disqualify their doings, their decision.
It's complicated. There is no good accountability for accrediting agencies. It's a nonprofit. It does colleges in other places besides California, and it answers to the federal government, not to the state. What the state can and should do is say, we need to use a different accreditor. Let's get out of this accreditor and choose a different one. And one of the ways in which the court case, I think, was very helpful is the court case found ACCJC out of compliance with something called the unfair competition laws, and confirmed that ACCJC is conducting a business. It's a nonprofit institution, but supplying accreditation services is a kind of business. The federal government recognizes accrediting agencies. The federal government, however, doesn't hear appeals. They basically have, as somebody put it, only one option, which is a nuclear option. They can say, ACCJC is doing a bad job, we're not going to recognize it anymore. It no longer can accredit anybody. But it doesn't have any real power to change a sort of aside from that. Although it can and has frequently told the commission, you're out of compliance with this federal regulation, you're out of compliance with that federal regulation. So, that is part of what's going on now. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
There is another side to that, and that is that the federal law says that the accrediting agencies should have the confidence of the institutions that they evaluate. ACCJC has effectively stifled people from saying that we don't have confidence in them, because when somebody says that, when some school says that, they come down hard on that school. And this whole business of restoration status, disparate treatment is a sign of prejudice in law. And if the standard for everybody else is substantial compliance, but suddenly one school is singled out and has to have complete compliance and doesn't even get to the end of the 2 years if they decide to revoke accreditation before that, you can see that this is actually a form of terrorism. That we are being held hostage by this institution, and that the California community colleges, in spite of being some of the best in the country,
are being victimized by these people, and that they are selling us. They are recommending that we have consultants, as you heard about that guy who the union challenged, or the college challenged on their appeals panel. He works for them. They recommend him as a consultant. He makes money because of them. Kinsella, who's on the board and was an officer of ACCJC, is the person who's behind all this sort of pre-funding for post-employment benefits. He wants every college to pre-fund them. The state doesn't require that. It's not a standard practice, but he's the person that set up that corporation. There's all kinds of conflicts of interest here, and it's all being held in place by a reign of terror, basically.
In response to Sonia's question about why, if ACCJC has been removed from Title V as the sole accreditor for California's community colleges, and it has, why can't other accreditors spring into action to kind of fill the void? Is that sort of behind the question? Yeah, I'll let Otto address it.
Thank you. Well, the first thing to understand is that we're locked into the ACCJC until the completion of the current cycle, which could be another 5, 7 years even. Secondly, there really aren't any other accrediting agencies particularly suited to us. Now, it's possible that one from another state will come in, or that one for 4-year colleges will move in, but at the moment, there is no agency suited to us. And thirdly, it's not final. The ruling of the Title V change says only that they have been removed as the exclusive, right? They don't have an automatic monopoly on it. So what's going to happen is that there's going to be what I think is called a 5-year migration period, during which these other accreditors will come out of the woodwork and try to make their case that they should take over. However, it is possible that the ACCJC will still be our accreditor after 5 years if they make a good enough case, if somebody else has not come forward. It's very disappointing, isn't it? Well, thank you for caring.
One of the things that you can do if you pass resolutions is to pass resolutions to the State Board of Governors and ask them to begin looking for other accreditors, not just to take these guys out, but to take an active pursuit of other organizations. By the way, in the 9 accreditation districts in the United States, this district is the only one that has a separate accrediting agency for 2-year schools. In the rest of the country, 2-year schools and 4-year schools have the same accreditors.
Also, as you may know, in the rest of the United States, the rate of sanctions is something like 2%. This is the only accrediting agency that sanctions more than half of its colleges.
Yeah. I'm Janelle Hampton. I teach English part-time here, and I'm also the lady campus rep. And that put me on an interview thing to meet with the committee that was meeting here, the ACCJC. And it was really hard because they were colleagues that I respect and were intelligent, asking the right questions, but they're associated with all of this, if you ask me, dark magic that's going on between CCSF, our brothers and sisters at CCSF, and ACCJC. So it puts us all in a difficult position. And I'm going to ask a couple of questions that you can answer or you don't have to. So my first question is, I know it's crass, at least in my mind, that a committee member or the team who went to visit CCSF is married to the president. Mm-hmm. To me, that's at least crass. I'm curious if in all of your understandings of the legal moving forward, if anybody who's interested is considering that more than crass, but unprofessional or some type of conduct misbecoming for educators or something, I don't know.
That was one of the things that was brought up in the trial. And the judge said, well, it wasn't proved that that had affected the outcome. But one of the things I found very interesting is in the closing statements, the ACCJC said, well, when we put in our conflict of interest policy, we weren't thinking in terms of individuals having a conflict of interest with the commission. We were thinking we wouldn't put people on a visiting team that had a conflict of interest with the school. For instance, we wouldn't put on, we avoid, is what the word they use, we avoid putting on a visiting team anyone who's ever been employed by that college. He said that 2 days after the restoration visiting team left City College that was chaired by a former employee of City College.
Okay.
The judge said that it gave the appearance of a conflict of interest in his ruling. But the other significant fact about that visiting team was that there was exactly one faculty member on a panel of 19 people. And according to their own standards, they're supposed to have representation from administration, from faculty, and from the public in general. Some of the people that serve on the commission are listed as members of the public, but some of those people are retired community college administrators. So the way the board is chosen, that's recently undergone some change, the board of the ACCJC, but it used to be really a Star Chamber thing. It was all done in camera and nobody knew what was happening. Now it's a little bit more transparent, but they still get to nominate the people who go up for it.
Also, I don't know if we mentioned this earlier or not, but the visiting team that visited our school, it is worth noting that the ACCJC did not follow their recommendations. They did not recommend that we shut down the school. Some of you probably already know that, but I feel like that needs to be repeated as often as possible. Thank you.
The other thing is that the ACCJC swears them to secrecy, and the only reason we know anything about this is because the judge was able to compel testimony.
You know, the visiting team are often very fine people. The visiting team that came in 2012, what we learned through the court and through discovery, that their discussion was City College has some problems, we should give them a warning. And then one member of the group persuaded the others to say, okay, well, we really should recommend that they be put on probation. The commission changed that to show cause.
So my next question is, has anybody floated the idea in all of your travels and communications with other people about this going on, that because City College of San Francisco is basically one of the largest, if not the largest district in the state, that where goes CCSF, there go the rest of us? It's a little conspiracy-minded, but it rings in my head all the time.
Somebody once said there are no accidents. And why not choose the largest community college in the state with the most diverse population and the largest programs and criticize it? They criticized us because we spent 90% of our budget on salaries. Now, other schools do the same thing and they don't get sanctioned. Why pick on us? Well, the fact is that when the Student Success Task Force thing was going down in Sacramento, they were arguing for it and City College was fighting against it. And you can draw whatever conclusion you want from that, but I think it's some kind of political fight.
You mentioned earlier in the talk that ACCJC had a political agenda. I'm wondering if you would talk about what you perceive that political agenda to be. And a second question is, what role, if you know, did Peter Crabtree play?
We know that Peter was on the commission in 2012. That's all we know, because it's a black box, what goes on, so we can't really say too much about that. People will accuse us of conspiracy theories, I suppose, because, these things happen behind closed doors. It's very hard to prove anything about this. But the Student Success Task Force legislation was largely the work of the Lumina Foundation, which turned itself into a foundation after a long career as a student loan broker. And they also are part of something called ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council.
They created private prisons.
They do all this stuff that is favorable to business and tries to suppress consumer rights and all kinds of things like that. So Lumina Foundation gave ACCJC $1.5 million the year before they put us on show cause.
I want to respond to that too.
Yeah, we'll talk about ALEC for a second.
Okay. You pay.
Oh, just briefly, I would like to mention that the American Legislative Exchange Council are the people who created the legislation that set the groundwork for the contemporary private prison that we all hear so much about these days.
One of the things I want to add to that is that we are often asked about, well, why did ACCJC do this to you, right? And one of the things I realize is when there's suspicion of a crime, right, of a murder, say, at some point people are looking for a motive to try to figure out, who should be arrested, who might have committed the murder. But eventually, the motives are really less important than what are the facts. Was there a murder committed, right? And I cannot get inside the heads of the ACCJC Commission. I cannot tell you what motivates them, right? What I can do is point to the facts, as you've all seen, which we could talk for 3 more hours about all the different things. I only talked about the appeal panel and the most recent thing, the letter from Barbara Bino and so forth. We could go on and on about the way in which they distort reality and so forth. As to why they do it, I'm not responsible for figuring out what motivates them. I think it's important to notice what they're doing and to take action no matter what the reason is.
One thing, if you want to gain an insight into some of their motivation, you can look at the email exchanges between Ron Galatolo and Commissioner Kinsella, where Commissioner Kinsella showed a strong prejudice against labor unions. A strong prejudice against labor unions, and said that once you give in to the labor unions, they own you. Galatolo is, he stuck his neck out when this first started and really came to bat for us.
Yeah. Well, like Karen said, what they say they want to do is address some of the problems with our school, allegedly. But their solution is to destroy the school and disenfranchise 70,000 people and annul our degrees. In terms of the effect, I think that's really the only way you can look at it when you're trying to form an opinion, is what's at stake here in terms of the lives of the most vulnerable people in San Francisco.
And then there's always cui bono. Who makes money out of this?
So Ed Jaramillo has a question, then Peter Brown down here.
Again, my name is Ed Jaramillo. I teach at the College of Alameda. And earlier you talked about the problem with the monopoly with just one accredited agency in the area. Has anybody looked into setting up a system, either through the Board of Governors or something, where you can have a region with multiple agencies, so districts can pick and choose, and it starts some competition? And we all know what happens when we have private companies with just a monopoly, and they're out of control and there's no competition.
So there's 2 kinds of accrediting agencies. ACCJC is a regional accrediting agency, and in general, that's considered the better kind of accrediting agency. And Title V is still saying that we need to use a regional accrediting agency. This is a question for Chancellor Bryce Harris and for the Board of Governors. Although the statewide academic senate, for instance, could push harder in this area. One of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of relationships between the Board of Governors and the Commission. There's one person right now who is simultaneously a member of the ACCJC and a member of the Board of Governors. Chancellor Harris was a member of the ACCJC Commission at one time. There are a lot of sort of relationships there among the people, and that seems to be why there's a real sort of dragging of the feet to really move this along further and faster.
One interesting detail about the chancellor is that when he finally made a deposition in the city's case against ACCJC, he said that the reason he appointed a special trustee, he had to change the rules, the regulations, in order to do that. When he appointed a special trustee with extraordinary powers, he did it because Barbara Bino gave him an assurance that if he did that, there would be a path to accreditation for City College. And then they announced that they were going to discredit us. So I think what happened was that alliance has been damaged by Bino's, sort of loose cannon behavior.
And then, very quickly, as far as multiple accrediting agencies goes, my understanding of the Title V changes recently made by the Board of Governors regarding exclusivity is that after this current period, there will be I think it's a 1-year migration period during which there may be multiple contending agencies, but the Board of Governors will select only one after that time, and that is currently the situation that's in law.
So State Chancellor Bryce Harris does respond to emails, and his email address is very easy to find online. You might want to write him. He will at least hear your response, read your email, and give you some kind of response.
Hi, my name is Peter. I teach here at Laney College, and I've been following this issue for a number of years. I'm in favor of any and all things we can do, but I'm really glad we came down to the question of who is benefiting by these actions. Because when you follow the money, you start to see why things are happening, and it's like peeking up over the top of the maze and seeing the actual patterns that are going on. So who really benefits by this? Well, we have a whole industry of education that's sprouting up. They're called for-profit colleges, and they are preying on exactly the demographic that Otto described. The exact demographic that's in my classes and in your classes, and they completely subsist on student loans and government grants, and our government gives them those grants. It gives them access to those grants. In fact, it gives them their charters that allow these corporations to exist and prey on us. So I would posit that in addition to all these other things, if we begin thinking in terms of what our government, what a just government would do to criminals, well, it can revoke their charters, it can seize their assets, and it can make them public. It can turn over that money to the public schools, like community colleges, like the historically black colleges and universities, and then we really begin to get near the source of why this is happening, why Lumina and ALEC favor downsizing our community colleges and cutting our classes and cutting our budgets. And believe me, I teach in a subject that's very well funded because my classes lead directly to employment, but I see my colleagues' departments starving.
It's not just a question of teaching to the job. I think we are the low-cost competition for these schools. Lumina Foundations likes to talk about quality degrees, and everybody knows you get what you pay for. So if you're getting an education for free, you know, maybe that's not so good. You should go to a private school. Some of these schools, Corinthian Corporation, by the way, was forced into being dissolved by Kamala Harris, who brought suit against them, our state attorney general. And they were getting something like 72% of their money from federally guaranteed student loans. Their completion rate was 26%. This is how they work. They work with ex-military, they work with high school dropouts, people who do not have the study skills to learn on their own without support, without classroom support. They give them online courses and tell them this is a flexible program, you can work, you can do this after you put your kids to bed at night. These are people who don't have much success in academics, and they're being set up on their own. And then for 2 or 3 semesters, they string them along, they drop them out, they keep their money, and because of Bush's change in the law, even if you go into bankruptcy, you cannot stop paying your student loan. $30 billion a year in defaulted student loans from institutions exactly like this. That's the cui bono.
I think Mel had a question.
Hi, I'm Mel Pritchard. I teach history at West Valley College, and I helped organize the new local of AFT, 6554. I live in San Francisco, and I feel like I've been disenfranchised because they took away our Board of Trustees. So I wanted to know what's going on with that. How are we going to restore those folks? Because I feel like we're part of this thing that's going on around the country where they're using all kinds of things, financial emergency, loss of accreditation, all kinds of crap to just take away our democratic rights. And so I just wanted to hear, I might have missed it because it came a little late, but what's going on with restoring our Board of Trustees, because that's just a travesty.
Thank you. So the way in which our Board of Trustees was disempowered by saying, oh, but the college has accreditation issues, and therefore we're disempowering the Board of Trustees and put a special trustee in place. A law was put in place last year that says that can't be done again. But that didn't change the situation for City College. We still are under a special trustee. The trustees, there was an election last fall. The new trustees and a couple who were not up for re-election have just recently been allowed to start meeting in public. They weren't allowed even to meet. And there's a supposed plan with all these steps that they have to prove. They have to get all this training, and they have to prove this, and they have to prove that before they'll be given any power. However, as soon as they came into the room and started asking questions of the special trustee, it changed the atmosphere tremendously. Just the fact that they were meeting, they were there, they were asking questions, even if the special trustee wasn't legally obligated to answer them, he did start answering in public. And the chancellor started answering in public. So they're now along a sort of stair step of the timeline for that has been speeded up, I believe, as a result of people like you stepping forward and saying, we elected these people, we want them to have the power. There's been a lot of work around that. So that originally it was said that, okay, they can start meeting, but they won't actually get to vote on things such as finances for something like 18 months. The most recent thing we heard is they're going to start voting on things other than finances no later than April, I believe, and be voting on finances by at least June or July.
And this is evidence that people can put pressure on government bodies. There was a move, a lot of people turned out for one of the Board of Governors meetings last summer, and one of the trustees proposed the idea of reanimating the board, bringing them back to life. One of the governors actually suggested that. Harris was waffling on the issue, but by the end of the meeting, so many people had spoken out that he agreed to have a new meeting in November at which it was discussed, and things have changed quite a bit since then. So keeping the pressure on is very important, and not just writing resolutions. Writing resolutions is great, but contact your state legislators. Tell them you want community college legislation reform. You can do that as a body. You can do that as a union or a faculty senate. You can also tell the Board of Governors what you want them to do. And FAC has been a great force behind this. So you can, through the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, you can also influence public policy here. But people need to speak out, and we need to stop being afraid of this tyranny.
So do we have any more questions from folks? Let me just take a moment to recognize Carmen Madden, who is the president of UFO, which is probably the best local name of any. That's the United Faculty of Ohlone. Thanks for coming, Carmen. I'm very proud of PFT, but when people read my t-shirt and say, "Pfft," it makes me long for UFO. So congratulations. And thanks again for coming today, folks. This is a really successful event, and it's great to see so many people here. So thanks a lot. Let me make a quick scheduling announcement for folks who may be thinking about retirement. We're back in this room 12:15 tomorrow afternoon for a retirement workshop that will be headed up by Bruce Jacobs from the PRO organization, the Peralta Retirees organization, and a former Laney math prop. That's a very popular event, so anyone who's entertaining thoughts of retirement is encouraged to show up back in D200 tomorrow at 12:15. Thanks again for coming, folks, and thanks so much to our panelists, Otto, Jaime, and Karen. Big round of applause. Thanks very much.